6 years ago, on September 18th, 2018, Netflix announced that a live-action Avatar: The Last Airbender adaptation was officially in the works. With the announcement, they released this now iconic teaser image of Aang resting his hand on Appa in a field of snow, which is actually a callback to original Avatar visual development sketches. The creators of the animated series, which aired from 2005 to 2008, Michael DiMartino and Bryan Konietzko, were also on board as showrunners and executive producers. We're thrilled for the opportunity to helm this live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender, DiMartino and Konietzko said in a release announcing the project. We can't wait to realize Aang's world as cinematically as we always imagined it to be, and with a culturally appropriate, non-whitewashed cast. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance to build upon everyone's great work on the original animated series and go even deeper into the characters, story, action, and world building. Netflix is wholly dedicated to manifesting our vision for this retelling, and we're incredibly grateful to be partnering with them. Netflix declared, "We are committed to honoring Bryan and Mike's vision for this retelling and are thrilled to support them on creating a live-action event series, bringing Aang's epic world of elemental magic to life for global audiences." Okay. And having the creators as showrunners and producers was imperative for this project to be taken seriously, as the fandom was still reeling from the first live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender by M. Night Shyamalan from 2010 depicted here. And in fact, DiMartino and Konietzko's statement directly addresses the live-action movie by saying that this won't be whitewashed, this will be a truly authentic reimagining. But like any animated live-action remake, fans were skeptical, not just because of what happened with the first one, and the long history of miscasting white actors in roles meant for people of color, not to mention the poor quality of live-action films in general, but because Avatar: The Last Airbender is a widely beloved series with a dedicated fandom, and a lot of people tie part of their identity to the series. In other words, the stakes for an Avatar live-action series are incredibly high for some people, me included. As one commenter said in 2018, Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the best TV shows ever made, and if they mess it up with the live action like what M. Night Shyamalan did, then the series will be completely ruined. Please don't mess this up. Like other fandoms, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, etc., the Avatar fandom is very vocal and cares deeply about the property. The series isn't just highly regarded for its storytelling, characters, world building, and political messages, but its ability to bring people of different backgrounds together and make people feel seen. Additionally, as an Asian American person, having Avatar as a kid growing up was huge for me. The amount of Asian actors on children's programming was few and far between, but in animation it was everywhere. I saw myself in the characters of Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, and Avatar: The Last Airbender. And better yet, Avatar was freaking cool and from the US, so I felt an even deeper connection to it. And as an adult, I go back to it time and time again because the world is just so amazing. I want to live in that world. And though the fandom isn't perfect and divided on a lot, Zutara, not going to get into that, I still find it to be a very accepting and creative space and just an overall net positive in the world. I truly believe as millennials will never get over how good Avatar: The Last Airbender is, especially if you're an Asian American millennial. So this live-action series has some big shoes to fill, as fans not only love the original series, but also tie part of their identity to it, and more specifically tie their childhood to this property, upping their nostalgia and love for the series even more. I think another reason why the announcement of an Avatar live-action series was polarizing to many was because it's kind of like a spit in the face to the animated series. And this doesn't just go for the impending Avatar: The Last Airbender Netflix series, but also for the Avatar live-action movie and other live-action adaptations. Whether they're anime to live-action or Disney animation to live-action, having a live-action version makes it seem as though the animation can't speak for itself or is somehow less than, as if animation isn't a respectable medium with its own merits. Animation and the artists behind the scenes deserve so much more respect. It's a grueling process from start to finish and is totally valid as an art form and a way of telling stories, sometimes even more effective than live action. Especially when it comes to a series like Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is one of the most beautifully animated series to date, and a huge reason people like it is because of the artistry. Animation was a perfect medium to tell this story, to display the bending, to get various themes across, etc. The fact that animated shows are animated is intentional. It's not because they actually wish they could be live action. And honestly, this is personal, but this is a huge sticking point for why I'm not really excited to see a live action Avatar: The Last Airbender series, and frankly, I never really wanted a live action, ever. I love that it's animated. That's one of the main reasons why I love the show and the world. I don't need a gritty, realistic remake. Though I will concede that the latest trailer did make me hype for the series, especially for the bending, which is good considering they spent 15 million USD per episode and there's 8 episodes. Not to mention the music in the trailer, that music gets me every time. So thus far we've talked about some general reasons why some people would be against an Avatar the live action series, despite the creators being on board. Firstly, live actions are generally received poorly, but especially with the Avatar The Last Airbender fandom, where there already was an attempt at bringing the world to life that failed miserably. Secondly, Avatar The Last Airbender fans in particular have pretty high standards due to the show being attached to their childhood. Nothing will ever be as good as the original. And lastly, live actions in general aren't really received that positively because one reason fans love animated properties is because they're animated. So it makes little sense to make a live action retelling specifically for Avatar, which is beautifully illustrated and really thrives as an animated story due to the fight choreography, visual effects, and fantastical and mystical elements, etc. But the creators are on board this time, right? We're saved. This won't be another flop. Oh wait, the creators left in 2020 due to creative differences? So this was my first red flag. I wasn't happy that Avatar The Last Airbender was getting a live action series as a fan of the series who definitely should have been excited for one, but the teaser image looks interesting. The original minds behind the series are working with Netflix. Let's see where this goes. And then Bryan, Konietzko, and Michael DiMartino released separate statements announcing their departure from the series. DiMartino wrote, "When Bryan and I signed onto the project in 2018, we were hired as executive producers and showrunners. In a joint announcement for the series, Netflix said that it was committed to honoring our vision for this retelling and to supporting us on creating the series. And we expressed how excited we were for the opportunity to be at the helm. Unfortunately, things did not go as we had hoped. DiMartino called exiting the project the hardest professional decision I've ever had to make. Netflix's live-action adaptation of Avatar has the potential to be good. It might turn out to be a show many of you end up enjoying. But what I can be certain about is that whatever version ends up on screen, it will not be what Bryan and I had envisioned or intended to make." More recently, Konietzko and DiMartino have since gone on to lead Avatar Studios, where they are developing various new animated Avatar projects. An animated feature film is set for release in 2025. I was going to say 2015. And that I am excited for. And before we go on, this isn't to say that these two guys are the end-all be-all of Avatar and that they're perfect and that what they say is the only thing that can be canon or whatever, but rather, knowing what we know now in 2024, I can definitely see why they left and why it probably isn't a good thing. So they never said specifically why they and Netflix parted ways, but from what we're going to talk about next, I think we can make our own guesses as to why, or at least I've made my own guesses as to why. But this was again the first red flag for me that this show probably won't be that great. And some of you in the comments did say it's too early to make assumptions, but what's the point of even having trailers and teaser images and all this hype if we can't make assumptions about the end product? After the showrunners left, the next year in 2021, the main cast was revealed, and most people were excited about it as Netflix seemed to keep the original showrunners' request to not have a whitewashed cast. However, the actor who is to play Sokka, Ian Ousley, has been called out online for not being Native American. He has stated that he's mixed race and a Cherokee tribe member, despite fans discovering that he's not actually listed as a member of any Cherokee tribe except for one that is not federally recognized. And this isn't to say that to be indigenous you have to be a part of a federally recognized tribe and be on some government list, but rather that he is being accused of straight up lying about his heritage to get the role. So that's something to keep in mind when and if you decide to watch the show, and it might even be one of the reasons why the creators left, but I'm not sure. I would also like to add that there have been colorism accusations by some fans when it comes to the casting of Sokka and Katara, as both actors have lighter skin than their animated counterparts. But I do want to say that with the actress who plays Katara, Kiawentiio, I don't see that, especially if you look at her other films like Beans, for example, but that's just my opinion. In the summer of 2023, we got our first glimpse into the live action series with some promotional photos of the actors in their costumes, and again, like you'd expect, fans were split. Some fans said that this was a huge upgrade from the live-action film, while others said that the costumes are the one thing M. Night Shyamalan got right. And honestly, looking back at the first live action Avatar attempt, they're not wrong. Like, Aang's tattoo in the Netflix pictures is just too literal of an interpretation for me that it's distracting. I also agree with critics that say the fabrics in the promotional photos look too synthetic, and that the 2010 film costumes seem to be more organic and don't look out of place in the world. And I don't know if it's just me, but the colors in the photos are just kind of off. They're just really bright, and it makes it look cheaper maybe than it actually is, and these are just promotional photos, so who knows. I know everyone's a critic, and you can't please everyone, and negative press gets picked up more than good press, so I'm okay with waiting to see how the series and world looks overall. And though the photos were generally off-putting to me personally, the trailer still looked awesome, and did surprisingly get me hyped to see the final product, whereas I was generally not into it for the past 6 years of hearing about it. Now on to the latest Avatar the live action controversy, and honestly, this is probably why the creators ended up leaving, at least in my opinion, the writing and character arcs. So yesterday, January 30th, during the time that I'm writing this, it was revealed via the actors who play Sokka and Katara, Ian Ousley and kiawentiio, that the writers decided to get rid of how sexist Sokka was. Ousley said, "There was more weight with realism in every way." kiawentiio added, "I feel like we also took out the element of how sexist Sokka was. I feel like there were a lot of moments in the original show that were iffy." Yeah, totally, Ousley agreed. There are things that were redirected just because it might play out a little differently in live action.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Okay, everyone, let's just take a deep breath. This really struck a negative chord with Avatar fans who specifically pointed out that the reason Sokka is sexist is because that's a huge part of his character arc and growth. That's how he meets Suki and how Aang is revealed, not to mention sexism within warrior bending culture is the norm, and Katara works to challenge those norms. Sokka starts out as this sexist guy who thinks that women are only good for cooking and mending pants, and Katara rightfully calls him out on his BS, even using the word sexist in the pilot episode. And I made a tweet saying that as a kid, I was 10 in 2005. This was one of my first introductions to the word sexist and how important that was. And now they're just taking it out because it's iffy. Like, what? No wonder the creators left.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Katara's anger at Sokka's ignorance is what breaks Aang out of the iceberg. But Albert Kim, the new showrunner, said that the Netflix show doesn't begin the same way as the animated series, so there's that. Sokka also meets Suki by vocalizing how a bunch of girls took them down and disregarding female warriors only to learn how skilled they are and learn to respect them. That's a really important lesson for kids to learn and see, and also a major story beat. Lastly, the Water Tribe being sexist is crucial for Katara to face off against Pakku, who was also, to her surprise, her grandmother's ex-lover. Having morally great characters and characters with flaws that they learn from is good, actually. I honestly can't believe we're having discourse on if Sokka is a bad character because he's sexist, even though the series illustrates why sexism is bad and that you shouldn't be like him, but that you can also find him relatable and root for him. Rather than having the audience side with Sokka and uphold the status quo in our real world, the original series shows viewers why female empowerment is important, while also not dismissing women or having Katara and the other female characters hate on other women either, or look down on more womanly things like emotions, or mending pants, or cooking, or taking care of the household, etc. The show illustrates how women and girls aren't monoliths, and are three-dimensional, the same as the men, and even calls out men for dismissing women, like that's a central theme to the entire story. Though of course there's the writing with Azula, which some fans have pointed out is iffy, if you will, as they make her into a mad woman in order to take her down a notch, because otherwise she would just be undefeatable, and how that's lazy storytelling, but that's for another day. In general, I think we really need to stop with this line of thinking that if you like something with morally gray elements or a character who is morally gray or problematic, then you yourself are problematic, because that's not true. Just because you like something with problems doesn't mean that the media needs to be fixed, Disney, but rather that art isn't for moral instruction or to validate your own moral compass, but to just exist as art, as fiction, a place to explore the human condition and society and culture, and not as a barometer for how good of a person you are. Some people are calling this Gen Z criticism, and maybe that's true because they're growing up with all of these corrected live action remakes of Lion King and Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast that fix all the problems in the originals, but I also think that this is a hang up we as adults have too. We want to stay as far away from the problematic as possible because we're not problematic, right? Without understanding that some art is intentionally defamiliarizing, that some characters are supposed to be bad in order to grow and change and to challenge us as viewers. On the other hand, I'd like to point out a Tumblr post someone left in the comments stating how toning down Sokka's sexism could be positive, as in the original series it's weird how the Water Tribe gets this portrayal as a sexist society while none of the other nations get this treatment. It's made doubly ironic considering that Inuit culture tends to be more gender balanced rather than sexist, not to mention showing a native character being sexist plays into this trope that indigenous people are inherently backwards. And I think it's really important to point this out, especially in a live action series like Ousley said, where there are real people delivering these lines, not just cartoon drawings. However, I think what most people are upset about isn't how the culture is portrayed, but rather the character, in that characters being sexist no matter their ethnicity is part of the real world and shouldn't be erased from stories, especially a story that was originally aimed for young boys. Looking back on the series, I think the main point of the Water Tribe being sexist is to juxtapose with how modern the city is. The Southern Water Tribe has almost been wiped off the map, so when they see how strong the Northern Tribe is, it gives Sokka and Katara hope, but the society is still regressive in a lot of ways that surprise Katara, specifically that women aren't taught to waterbend in ways other than healing. So there's this disconnect between this modern city that has regressive values. But I do agree that it is weird how this isn't present in other societies in Avatar, but at the same time, it kind of is. For example, Toph is infantilized by her family and fellow benders for being blind, but also for being a little girl. And Sokka doesn't believe that she could win against the boulder because of her stature and gender. But that's again more of Sokka's hang-up than making the Earth Kingdom out to be some backward society, though we do see class inequality in Ba Sing Se, and that really characterizes the Earth Kingdom as opposed to sexism when it comes to the Water Tribe. Lastly, the Fire Nation is of course not portrayed as sexist, or at least that's not its main feature, but rather more attention is given to its industrialization and killing the planet, and of course its hand in genocide. Each nation is given its own flaws, but it is unfortunate that the Water Tribe, which is based on Inuit culture, gets the sexism attribute when that doesn't seem to be the case, or at least the whole story in real life. And some people did point out how it is really early for us to be making all of these assumptions and guesses, but at the same time it's part of, like, again, the hype for the show. I mean, I'm still gonna watch it, I'm excited for it, and I also think that we shouldn't be mean to, like, the kids that are just giving these interviews and who have no real power or say when it comes to the direction and writing of the series. Netflix's live-action Avatar: The Last Airbender is set to air on February 22nd, and I'm probably going to be tuning in. And honestly, I do want it to succeed. I don't want it to be bad, especially for the child actors who are just children and you need to be protected, and this could be like a huge thing for them. And before I end this, I want to acknowledge how much pressure like Albert Kim must be under, because this is a beloved international franchise with millions of fans, and you know, you're not going to make everyone happy at the end of the day, and that's okay. This show doesn't exist to please me, and even if it's bad, I'm not gonna like throw a huge fit about it. Honestly, I'm not that invested, but I don't like that this could possibly be like a correction to all of the things that are wrong with the original series. Because the original series does have flaws and those should be talked about, but I don't think we need to make another series to correct those things. And honestly, at the end of the day, I'm not expecting much at this point. So that's it for this video. Let me know what you think about the hype for the series, and if you want to see my review of the series once it comes out, and in general, what you think about Avatar: The Last Airbender and the news that has come about from this like live action thing. Alright, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.